Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the August past Women in Technology virtual chapter session. Our speaker today is Evelyn Maxwell, and we will get to her in just a few minutes. I wanted to let you know if you haven't registered for past summit yet, you can still save $150 off of that fee with the past virtual chapter discount code, and that's here. And we've tweeted it. It's up on our wit.sequelpass.org website, so you can find it there as well. So SQL Sentry actually has just come on board for the past virtual chapter, and they have offered us a year-long sponsorship. So we're going to do a session later on in the year where we give SQL Sentry a few minutes to talk about their products and what they're doing with WIT. They've also been a sponsor of the past WIT Luncheon for the last few years, and they will be again this year. So we're really excited about that. We have some upcoming webinars for Women in Technology. Next week, Kathy Kellenberger will be doing the session that we had to cancel due to a power outage. It'll happen next week, and it's on SQL Server reporting services in 2016, what's new. So some slides, some demo, a great mix of both. Kathy Kellenberger, if you guys don't know, is the co-leader with me of the past Women in Technology virtual chapter. Then we'll also be hosting Shabnam's SQL Developers Guide to MDX. That's the one, if you guys remember, a month or two ago, Shabnam's father actually got really ill, and we had to cancel for her. So she'll be giving this one. I've seen this one at the Atlanta MDF user group, and I'm not a developer, but there were a few aha moments during this. I'm just not an MDX person, but she made it a great topic for not an MDX person. I could definitely appreciate what it was that she was doing. And Melody Zacharias has agreed to do our session in October. She'll be introducing Microsoft Analytics, tuning data into intelligent action. These descriptions are all up at the SQL WIT webpage, and there's the link right there that you can see. There's a link there for our YouTube page, and again, that link is also available from WIT SQL Pass. If you join the virtual chapter through your Pass logon, you'll get a copy of our monthly newsletter. It has all of these links in it, some great articles on women in technology, what people are reading and what people are thinking. You can also follow us on Twitter at PassWit with the underbar there, or follow the PassWit hashtag. It's also important that you use the PassWit hashtag if you have an article or a story that you want other people to read. If you have a question that you want people to answer, use that hashtag and start a discussion. And so we have some upcoming SQL Saturday sessions that are being taught by women, and we highlight these from our Twitter account and our webpage as well. So the session that you guys are here to see today, Evelyn Maxwell, she will be presenting in Louisville this Saturday. Monica Rathbun is Survival Techniques for a Lone DBA. I've attended this session, and it's kind of when you're the only DBA in a shop, how do you use tools and tricks and networking to help you get your job done every day. She is actually presenting at the same time that I am. My Women in Technology Gender Bias and Gender Inequality session. And then Tracy and Gigi both present later on in the afternoon. Baton Rouge has 10 sessions that are being taught by females this year. So they take up 2 places. But I know Teresa Eller is doing 2, and Amy Harold is doing 2 as well. And Jenna McCone, of course, she did this one in I think she did this one in Columbus is where I saw it. She may have done it in Atlanta as well. It's a great session. So today's session is Evelyn Maxwell, Improving Your PowerPoint Skills. I attended this session in Columbus as well. She's presented it in Cleveland. And it's tips and tricks to make your PowerPoint presentations better. And a lot of us are DBAs, developers who never bothered to learn how to use PowerPoint, and I learned a lot from her, and I think you guys will too. So it's important to note that Evelyn's starting the 8th grade shortly. Her dad runs the SQL Saturday in Columbus. He's Dave Maxwell, and I'm really proud of her, and I love how he's encouraged her to get involved in this. So, Evelyn, I am going to turn things over to you if you're ready. So whenever you're ready to go, just click go, and you will be live. Oops, let me unmute you as well. Sorry about that.
Now?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Evelyn Maxwell, and today we are going to be talking about improving your PowerPoint skills. Now, we are having a few technical difficulties right now, and I can't really get my screen to work, but that should be revised shortly, and yep, there we go. That's not how that's supposed to look. Okay. Alright, what can we try here? Nope, that just made it worse. Great, okay. Alright, we have one more thing we could do here. Oh, wait, there we go. Okay, we got it. Back to normal. Let's get started. So just a little bit about me before we get into our more technical content. I am 13 years old and am currently employed at Gahanna Middle School West, where I work in their 8th grade band division. I work as a percussionist, which means I get to work with some very interesting instruments and some very interesting people, to say the least. I'm a frequent SQL Saturday attendee, and this is actually the 3rd time I've given this presentation. However, this is the first time I have given it in a webinar format. But that's enough about me. Let's move on to the PowerPoint. So what are we going to cover today? Well, we are going to briefly talk about why you would practice PowerPoint, and then cover the 5 main tabs that people use when creating a PowerPoint presentation. These are Home, Insert, Design, Transitions, and Animations. Towards the end, we will talk more in depth about adding different types of media to slides, and then wrap things up and answer some questions. Let's get right into it. Why would you practice PowerPoint? Well, to help me explain this, I'm going to refer to a diagram known as Dale's Cone of Experience, which shows different ways you can convey information to people and how effective those ways are. This was created by Edgar Dale, who was an American educationist. Towards the top of the cone, you have the less effective methods, and towards the bottom of the cone, you have the more effective methods. Now, using the Insert tab, which we are going to briefly cover today, you can add to your slides some of the less effective strategies like text, pictures, or videos. However, what we're trying to talk about today is stepping away from just using text and just using a picture, but rather combining those less effective strategies and methods to create something more effective. Like using forms of media you don't typically see in PowerPoint, like audio, or doing a combination of all of them to create a demonstration, or to walk your audience through a really direct and purposeful experience. So with that in mind, let's move on to our first 2 tabs, Home and Insert. Now, Home and Insert are the 2 most common tabs that people use when working with PowerPoint, since they are mainly used for creating slides and adding content. The Home tab is kind of like your nexus when creating a presentation, a main base used for working on individual slides and creating new ones. Since the Home tab is very commonly used, we're not going to talk about it a whole lot today. However, we are going to look more in-depthly at Insert. Now, the Insert tab is primarily used for adding content. This can be text, graphics of any kind, or other forms of media. Most people use the Insert tab quite often when working with PowerPoint, but tend to not look at it too closely, leaving a lot of important and helpful features left unexplored. For example, pictures are very commonly used in PowerPoint slides. However, most people only use one option to insert pictures into their slides when there are in fact 3 other options they could potentially be using. Now, there are indeed 4 different ways you can insert pictures into your slide deck, the most widely used being local pictures, which allows you to insert pictures you have saved on your laptop or computer. Online pictures, which allows you to search pictures on the internet without leaving the PowerPoint program. screenshots, which lets you take screenshots directly from PowerPoint, and finally a very interesting feature known as Photo Album. Now, Photo Album essentially has you select images you already have saved on your laptop or computer, but pick a few options as to how you want them displayed, and then we'll build you a basic slide deck essentially showcasing your pictures. Again, a very interesting feature, but people just tend to look over it once and not really realize it's there. Another subsection in the Insert tab that people tend to glance over and not really think twice about is the Illustrations subsection. Using this part of the Insert tab, you can add three things: shapes, SmartArt, and charts. Shapes are, of course, fairly self-explanatory, and SmartArt and charts are different diagrams and graphics that you can add to your slides. Using these three options are best explained in practice, so without further ado, let's move on to our first demo, inserting SmartArt and charts. Can we see that okay? The blank slides?
Yes, sorry, I can see fine.
Okay. So here we have our blank demo slides, just three blank, very plain looking slides that we are going to use today. As you can see, our demo presentation is about penguins, because, I mean, like, why wouldn't you want to make a presentation about penguins? So using our two blank slides, we are going to look at inserting a SmartArt example and a chart example. So we can go to our Insert tab, found right between Home and Design, and we go to our Illustrations subsection. So let's start with SmartArt. We click on SmartArt, and here we're going to get a pop-up displaying all the different types of graphics we could potentially add. We have lists, processed, cycle, hierarchy, relationship. And once we figure out the type of graphic that we want to add, we have a few options for various layouts or appearances of the type of graphic. So I went with pyramid with the layout pyramid list. Once I have that selected, I click OK. And my SmartArt example will be added to my slide. So once I'm ready to input my data, I simply click on the text box and I can add that from there. So adding data to a SmartArt graphic is fairly simple, and once we're done with that, there are a few options as to how we can change the appearance of our graphic. So when you're working with any type of graphic in PowerPoint or image, you're going to get two additional tabs in your toolbar up above that you can use. These are Design and Format. Using Design, if you don't like the layout you had previously, you can go back and change that from there. You can change the color scheme of your graphic. There are a lot of different options you can choose from there. And then a subsection entitled SmartArt Styles, where there are various formats and minor changes you can make to your graphics. Some of them being 3D, some of them being slightly hard to see, but a lot of different options you can add to change the appearance of your graphic. And then the Format tab. The Format tab is mostly used if you want to work on an individual piece of your graphic. So let's say I just wanted to work on the triangle. I can go to the Shape Styles subsection, and here I can change the fill of my shape. Let's say I wanted a light green, and then I can change the outline of my shape. Let's say I wanted a dark green. And then finally I can add shape effects, things like shadows, glow, reflection, and 3D rotation. Also, using the Format tab, if I have any text or wording at all in my graphic, I can change that as well in the Word Art Styles subsection. This will give you a few different options you can choose from for fancy fonts or colors you could potentially add, and then text fill, text outline, and text effects, similar to the ones we used in Shape. And that is pretty much it for SmartArt. So let's move on to Chart. We click on Chart again in the Illustrations subsection in the Insert tab, and we get a pop-up, again, very similar to the one for SmartArt. We have all the different types of charts we could potentially add, stock, surface, radar, line. I'm going to go with pie chart. And then once we have our type of chart selected, we have various layouts. Pie, 3D pie, pie of pie, bar of pie. Ooh, donut. I want to go with donut. So we have both the layout and the type of chart we want selected. And then we're going to get the chart added to our slide along with a mini Microsoft Excel sheet. Because you know a donut chart is kind of like a pie chart, except it takes less bites. Yes? No? Okay, I'm just going to assume that everybody laughed at that and move on. So we have our mini Excel sheet and we have our chart. Different from SmartArt, instead of editing your data directly from your chart, we're going to use the Excel sheet. Let's make this a little bit bigger there. Okay. So let's say I wanted to change the title. So I get rid of sales and I change the title to penguins. And once I click somewhere else, as you can see on our chart, the title has been changed to penguins. Now from here I can edit or remove the data that PowerPoint has provided me with. I can add additional data, and I can add additional, I'm not entirely sure what you would call that. I could add an additional quarter, make a fifth quarter. That's a %, okay. Add a fifth quarter and proceed to edit my data in the Excel sheet. Once I'm happy with what I have, I can exit out and then edit the appearance of my chart essentially the same way I edited my SmartArt graphic. So we have our two tabs, Design and Format. Design, where we have more chart styles that we can choose from. And then the Format tab, where we can again work with shape styles and word art styles. And also in the Design tab, specifically for working with charts, you have the Data subsection. Now here you can open up your Excel sheet once again and continue to edit your data from there. Or if you already have an Excel sheet that you want to input into a PowerPoint chart, you go to Edit Data, click the drop-down arrow, and click Edit Data in Excel. Maybe. And then from there you could open up a previous Excel sheet that you've already made. And that is pretty much it for Insert. Do we have any questions on charts or SmartArt graphics or the Insert tab in general? Any questions?
I'm muted. Hold on, I'm checking. No questions. Sorry.
No questions? Okay, great. Let's move on then. Alright, with that being said, let's move on to the third tab in the PowerPoint toolbar, Design. Now using the Design tab, you can do two things. Edit the background of your slides and select and customize generic themes. Now for those of you who don't know, a PowerPoint theme is essentially a set of rules for the appearance of your slides. This could be the color, spacing, size, fonts, and so on of your text, the positions of certain icons or images on specific slides, the color of your background, and much, much more. There are a few ways you can add themes to your slides, the easiest of which being the Themes subsection in Design, where you can easily add generic themes already made by PowerPoint. Using themes, you can also apply themes that were shared with you by either a coworker or your boss, or maybe even a friend. However, if you aren't happy with the generic themes you're provided with, or want to either make a few changes or create your own theme entirely from scratch, then you can use a feature known as Slide Master. Slide Master is not technically found in the Design tab, but actually in the View tab. However, Slide Master and themes and background changes all really go hand in hand, so this is an important feature to look at when working in Design. The Slide Master subsection, I'm sorry, not the subsection, but feature, essentially allows you to edit every single possible detail of your slides that there is, allowing you to adjust the placement or size of current content, or add entirely new icons or images to your slides. However, before we move on to our second demo and see how we would accomplish all this, I want to briefly talk about the sheer number of options that PowerPoint provides you with. Now, PowerPoint is great because it gives you a ton of different options for customizing your slides. But the thing about PowerPoint is it gives you a ton of different options for customizing your slides. So it's kind of a double-edged sword kind of deal. There are some interesting options in PowerPoint that you can use. However, if you try to use them all at once, you're going to end up with something like this. Okay, I'm going to do this really fast because this hurts my eyes. This is an example of an absolutely horrendous PowerPoint theme. The color and font of the text is absolutely ridiculous. The background is hard to even look at, and I honestly don't even remember what I put the box at the bottom for. So an example of a really bad PowerPoint theme where you use all of those options available at once. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's move on to our second demo, applying PowerPoint themes. Okay. Here we go. So we have our blank demo slides from before. Instead, this time, we are going to look at adding a PowerPoint theme to our slides to make them just a little bit more interesting. So we can go to our Design tab, found right between Insert and Transitions, and we have 3 different subsections we can work with: Themes, Variants, and Customize. So let's start with Themes. As you can tell from my intro slide right here, I have black text, which is centered in the middle, and I have a specific font. However, if I go and select a PowerPoint theme, all of that is changed. I have different colors, fonts, placement, sizing for my text, and I have a different background. Changes like these will be made every single time you select a new theme, like if I go to the theme Ion. All of my text has changed once more. I have a different background. I have the additional tab image towards the top of the slide. However, if we are going with penguins, let's do something a little bit more penguin related and go with droplet. So we have the theme that we want selected, and now there are a few things we can do from the Design tab to change it. So we could go over to the Variant subsection and work from there. There are a few different options for various backgrounds we could apply. I personally like the fade from the purple to the blue. And then if we click the down arrow, we can get very specific with things like colors and fonts. So if we click on colors, we have a ton of different color schemes we can choose from, as well as an option down below for creating your own color scheme. Same with fonts. We have a ton of different font pairings we can choose from, and we can go to the bottom and create our own. And finally, we have background styles, where we can make even subtler changes to the background of our slides. Now there's one final subsection that we can work with in the Design tab, and that is Customize. From here we can do 2 things. We can change the size of our slides. Most presenters, including myself, use widescreen, 16:9, so that the screen will fill, so that the slide will fill the entire screen. However, there is the standard option, which will make your slides just a little bit smaller when you present. And then finally, there is the Format Background option. Now, here's where you can get very specific with the background of your slides. And another thing I want to point out, when you're working with custom themes made by PowerPoint, you can sometimes run into a few problems. As you can see, I went to solid fill to try to do a solid color for my background, but because we have that gradient spot towards the top as part of the PowerPoint theme, I'm unable to do that. So just another thing to keep in mind, that there may be a few options restricted to you depending on the PowerPoint theme that you're using. So solid fill is an option in addition to the gradient fill that we saw before. A picture or texture fill, I said that right, where you can either use a file you have saved on your computer, something you can find online, or one of the textures that PowerPoint provides you with. These can either be hit or miss because, well, I personally would use something like this in my slides. I wouldn't necessarily use something like this in my slides. So that is just another option that you have available to you. And then there finally is pattern fill. Now, I personally don't use pattern fill in my slides as I feel they can be a little bit hard to look at times. However, this is an additional option for background. Now, before we finish up our design demo, we need to look at Slide Master. So we go to our View tab, and under the Master Views subsection, we can click on Slide Master. Here is where we can get very particular with our slides. So let's say I wanted to work on the title slide specifically, and I wanted to move my text boxes all the way to the right corner. And that is how I would want my title slides to look. So I would do that in Slide Master, and then when I close out of Master Views and go to my title slide, all the text boxes have been moved to the right. And this will happen every single time I try to add a title slide. That's where the text boxes will already be positioned. And let's make one more change. Go back to View, Slide Master, and let's see, I didn't really want the droplets on my blank slides. So I would go to Slide Master, I delete my droplets, I close out of Master Views, and boom, no droplets. One more thing to look at before we close out of design is how to apply themes that have been sent to you or shared with you. So let's say you work for a company where you have to use a specific theme, a specific PowerPoint theme when you're giving a presentation to promote the business or whatever. So you would go to the Design tab and you hit the drop-down arrow in the Themes subsection and click on Browse for Themes. So you click on that, and what your boss or coworker is supposed to have done is send you the theme in a PowerPoint form. So you click on the theme that they sent you, you press Apply, and then that change will be made to your slides. So let's take a look at this really quickly. So here is my example of a custom theme specifically for a business. As you can see, we have the fancy company title and my motto, inspiring the future, or whatever, you know, business stuff like that. And then we have the contact information in the right corner. And then if we were to move on to a next slide, we would have the presenter's name in the left corner and more contact information in the right corner. So just an example of how you can use PowerPoint themes to promote the business of your company. And that is pretty much it for our design demo. Do we have any questions?
Not so far.
No questions? Okay. All right. All right, transitions, the fourth tab in the PowerPoint toolbar. Now, using the Transitions tab, you're able to edit the movement from one slide to the next. Now, this is a fairly simple concept in theory. However, it can in fact get quite complex. First of all, there are 3 different types of transitions: subtle, exciting, and dynamic content. Subtle transitions are very quick and to the point, not wasting any time when moving to the next slide. Exciting transitions are exactly the opposite, being very long and drawn out, and usually being very flashy. Dynamic content transitions are interesting because they almost appear to be a combination of both. Now, during a dynamic content transition, the content of your slide, like your text boxes and your images and your graphics, will either be flying away or panning out or spiraling off the screen. But there will also be a subtle transition in the background, usually a fade or a wipe, depending on whether or not you have a different background in the next slide. So depending on the type of presentation you're giving, obviously all of these different types of transitions could have pros or cons. But if you are going to be giving a more technical presentation, you typically want to use a more subtle transition because it has a lesser chance of distracting your audience and won't take away any valuable time you could use talking about content. Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone away from excited or dynamic content transitions. However, if you do want to use them in a technical presentation, try to use them sparingly or minimalistically, as they can prove distracting and eat up presentation time. Like, let's say you're trying to tell your audience something really important as you move on to the next slide, and it's a key part of your presentation, and it's just really important that they understand this one piece of information, but they're too busy staring at the transition as it flies across the screen, so they're not going to have any idea what you just said. Alright, what did I just say? See, if you have a distracting transition like that, this one in particular is called origami, where the slide folds up and flies away as a paper crane, your audience is going to be too busy staring at the transition and not hearing the important information you're trying to tell them. So again, you don't want to completely step away from exciting transitions, but you want to use them sparingly. Let's bring him back here. I want to name him Joe. Joe the Crane. That sounds nice. Okay, so with that in mind, let's move on to our third demo, transitions in PowerPoint. So here we have our presentation from before. However, we've made a few changes. We have the theme from earlier, except this time we have a few more slides now containing pictures of adorable penguins. That one's my favorite. It's so fluffy and cute. And then we have a slide with text on it, a list of penguin attributes. So we're going to look at adding some transitions to our multitude of slides. So we go to our Transitions tab, found right between Design and Animations, and then this time we have two different subsections we can work with, Transitions to the Slide and Timing. So we click our drop-down arrow, and here we have the three different types of transitions. We have our subtle transitions, like push, wipe, and split. As you can see, they're not very long, and they don't have a lot of flashy animation, like exciting. That one's called curtains. It's very dramatic. You could use it for your intro. Or something like fracture, or glitter, which is very interesting. And then finally, dynamic content transitions. Now, we do have a different background in this slide than our content slide because the droplets are bigger in the corner of the title slide and smaller in the one of our first content slide. So if we go to select a dynamic content transition like pan, we see our content moving, but we can also see the very subtle change in the background, like so. So once you have a transition that you really like and that you want to use for your presentation, let's say we want to use push, there are a few things we can do to edit it in the timing subsection. So if we want to apply that particular transition to all of our slides, we can click Apply to All, and then that will immediately be applied to all of our slides, and we don't have to go to each individual one and change that from there. We can change the duration of our transition, making them longer or shorter. So let's say we have the transition fracture, and we turn up the duration a few seconds higher, and then go to present. So the transition will be longer, and it'll be kind of like watching the transition in slow motion. And then it is possible to add sound to your transitions. So this could potentially be something you want to do because if you have a smaller sound that's easier to hear, kind of like a click. I don't know if everybody heard that, just a little. That could be potentially used to let your audience know that, okay, I'm done with this slide, I'm moving on to a new one, we're talking about different content now. This could also be potentially helpful if you have people in your audience who are visually impaired. However, there are a few options that you wouldn't want to necessarily use for a technical presentation, like this one. That would get very obnoxious very quickly, so please just save the explosions for a later date. And finally, in the timing subsection, it is possible to time your transitions. Now, most presenters, including myself, use the on mouse click option because you have more control over when your slides will move. It is possible, though, to time your transitions. So let's say I time it to 3 seconds for this slide. I go to present, and then after 3 seconds, my slide will move on. Like so. This is not something I would recommend doing because you could go too fast and your slide will move too late, or you could go slower than usual or stop to answer questions from the audience and your slide will move too early. So I would recommend going on the safer side and using the on mouse click option. And that is it for transitions. Do we have any questions there?
None so far.
Okay.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh.
Give me 1 second.
That's not great.
She said, I have a question that says, what's an average transition time that is best used for a technical presentation?
Let's bring this up. Hold on. Let's bring this back here. Transitions. Most people tend to use cut, fade, or wipe. These are usually about a minute at max. Or not a minute, I'm sorry, a second at the longest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Glad that helped. Any other questions?
I have one that we'll get to when you discuss video.
Okay, got it. Okay, let's move past Joe the Crane and straight to animations. The fifth tab in the PowerPoint toolbar, animations, are similar to transitions. However, instead of being able to edit the movement of the slide itself, the animations tab allows you to add movement to your content, like images or text. Also similar to transitions, there are 3 different types of animations. These are entrance, emphasis, and exit. Entrance animations bring content onto the screen, like so. Emphasis animations call attention to the content. And finally, exit animations remove content from the screen. Now, there are, of course, multiple instances where you could apply animation to your content. However, you don't want to apply animation to everything on your slides. You want to use animations minimalistically so that they're still effective, yet not distracting or overused in your presentation. So before we move on to our 4th demo, I want to go back and look at that beautiful slide we had before. Remember the one with the bright pink and white stripes? Except this time, I want to see what it would look like if we add horrible animations in addition to our horrible theme. I hope everyone's ready for this. Here we go. Look at it go. It's so beautiful. It's even harder to read from before. Oh, we can make it spin. That was really cool. Let's make it spin again. Oh, and for the end, we can make it flash. If that wasn't one of the most horrible presentation slides that you have ever seen. Whew. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's move on to our 4th demo, adding animations. Okay. Why is this not working? Okay, here we go. Alright, so today we are just going to look at adding animation to a picture and to text, bullet points specifically. So let's start with our picture, and we are going to look at adding both an entrance, emphasis, and exit animations in that order to our adorable little penguin. So we start with our animation subsection in our animations tab, and then we click the drop-down arrow and we have our 3 different types of animations: entrance, emphasis, and exit. So we start with our entrance animation, and let's say we want something like bounce. So we have our bounce animation. Okay. If I say animation at any point during the presentation, I'm really sorry, but once you say animation, it's kind of hard to say animation. Alright. So we have our entrance animation added, and then we go over to our advanced animation subsection and click Add Animation, where we would then add our emphasis and exit. So we can add an emphasis like teeter, just a little movement back and forth. And then we go to Add Animation once again and select our exit, which in this case would be bounce. So there we go. We have our entrance, emphasis, and exit. And if we go to present, we click once, we get our entrance, click twice, we get our emphasis, click 3 times, we get our exit. So those are a few things you could do when animating a picture. Now, most presenters don't typically animate text. However, when they do, a very commonly used strategy is to do an entrance animation for bullet points. Now, presenters typically use this when they want to look at their content in bite-sized pieces per slide, and when they don't want their audience skipping ahead and reading all their slides and then tuning out and dozing off. So you would take your bullet points and add an entrance animation, let's say, let's go with fly in. Except this time we would make a change in the timing subsection, the 3rd and final one in our animations tab. So from here we can change the duration and the delay, making them longer or having a longer pause between each animation. And then we can change when our animations start. And if we select on click and not with previous or after previous, then each of the bullet points will come up one by one when I go to present. So I click once and then only my first bullet point shows up, so that your audience can only read your first bullet point and not move on to other content when you haven't explained it yet. And then if I click twice, I get my second, 3 times my third, 4th, 5th, etc. And those are things you could potentially use to animate text or pictures. That's the end of our animations demo, so do we have any questions on that?
Not so far.
No questions? Okay. Then let's move on to additional media. So additional media is the final technical part of our presentation, and we're going to be looking at the subsection media, the Insert tab. Now, I know we already talked about the Insert tab, however, we only looked at adding conventional forms of media that you typically find in PowerPoint, things like pictures. Media tab, you can add more non-conventional forms of media typically found in PowerPoint, like audio, video, and screen recordings. So I thought it would be best to save this for the end as a way to wrap up our presentation. Now, I'm going to make the very safe assumption that everyone watching knows what audio and what videos are. However, I'm going to very briefly cover screen recordings. Screen recordings are essentially records of screen activity. So you could do a screen recording of you going to a website and doing something there, or have a screen recording of you working with a separate program that you could then add to your slides. There's not a whole lot to talk about on this slide, so let's move on to our 5th and final demo, ladies and gentlemen, audio and screen recordings. Okay, gotta bring this up, slide it over. Okay. So again, we're back at our plain slides from before, and we're going to go to our Insert tab again, except this time we're going to go all the way over to the right and look at Media. Now I'm only going to be looking at screen recordings and audio today, since you insert videos the same way you insert audio, and you edit videos the same way you edit screen recordings. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to get a little bit fancy with our demos today, and we are actually going to do a screen recording of us inserting audio. So we click on screen recording, and here we are going to get a toolbar up above giving us a few options as to whether or not we want audio and whether or not we want to record our pointer. So then we are going to get a cross, which we will then use to select. The area we want to record. When we're ready, we hit the record button. PowerPoint will give us a countdown, and we are recording. Yay! So we go back to our slides from before, and then we are going to go to audio. Now there are two different things you can do here. You can select audio you already have on your PC, or you can record your own audio. So let's start with audio on your PC, and then you can go and select a file that you want to potentially use. You click on Insert, and then you'll have the audio icon that you can work with from there. I had a lot of fun using that. So we have our audio icon that we can edit from there, and it is possible to record your own audio straight from PowerPoint. You got to record audio, you name your sound clip, and then you can start recording from there. Now, normally what I do when I'm giving this presentation, when it's not in webinar format, is that I make everybody in the audience make penguin noises, because all of our demo slides have been about penguins. Unfortunately, we can't do that because of the current setup, so everybody here dodged a bullet today, but that is another option that you have. So, editing audio. You're going to get two additional tabs to work with. You're going to get the Format tab from before. However, you're also going to get the Playback tab. We have multiple subsections we can work here. We can work on trimming the audio, making it longer or shorter, or start in different places. We can have fade-ins or fade-outs. And then we have multiple audio options. And then the specific subsection you get when working with audio is audio styles. Now these are two different preset options that you can use. Currently we have no style selected, where none of our boxes are checked off. But then we also have play and background, where we have a few of these options selected. So our audio will start automatically. It will continue to play across slides and loop until it's stopped, and the audio icon will be hidden during the show. We do not have the rewind after playing option selected for play and background. And that is what you would do to potentially add audio to your slides. And it turns out we are actually still doing our screen recording. So now that we're done inserting audio, we can either pause it, or, whoop, okay. You could potentially pause it and move on to a different program, or you could hit stop, and then your screen recording will be added. So as you can see, when we click play, we see my cursor moving around on the screen recording, going to our blank demo slides, and hovering over near audio. We're not going to watch the entire thing, but that is something that we have available to us. So you would essentially edit a screen recording the same way you would edit audio. We have the trim video option. We can make it longer or shorter. We have the editing option. We can do fade-ins or fade-outs. And then we have video options, which are exactly the same as the ones we had when working with audio. However, when working with a screen recording or a video, there is no audio styles subsection. And that is it for our final demo. Do we have any questions on that?
So I have one question. Can you record an audio live from a website, as in YouTube, into audio?
I bet you could, but if it's trying to add audio from YouTube, is that the question?
It sounds like it. Can you record audio live from YouTube into audio?
You probably could, but also if you go to, hold on, let's see if I can bring this up. You go to Google and you can go to I can spell, yay, YouTube, YouTube to MP3. You can go to it's a converter where if you get the YouTube link for the video that you want and then click convert video, it'll change the audio into an MP3 file that you can use from there.
Great, thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Nope.
No, I think we're good.
None? Okay. So in that case, back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we are almost at the end of our presentation here, and just as a fun way to wrap things up, I'm going to show an example of combining those less effective strategies that we talked about in the beginning. So let's say you have these two, oh, they're just adorable little guinea pigs. They're so cute, and you want to show the audience how adorably fuzzy they are. So you could potentially put together a slide like this. They're just so adorable, oh my god! Look at them. So these are actually my guinea pigs. Peppermint on the left and Sunday on the right. They're so cute. But in addition to being an adorable picture of my little pigs, this is also a great example of combining those less effective methods. We have the picture, in addition to the audio, with the caption, and maybe if we wanted, we could even add animations to this slide. But just a way of showing how we can combine those less effective strategies in order to create a more in-depth level of understanding for an audience. And we are pretty much at the end of our presentation here, so what did we learn today? Well, we talked about Dale's cone of experience and how we can combine less effective strategies to create more effective ones that will help your audience understand content on a deeper level. We talked about home and insert and how we can add different types of graphics like charts and diagrams to our slides as a different way to show numerical data. We talked about design and how we can use custom themes in our slides to make our presentations just a little bit more visually appealing. We talked about transitions and the pros and cons of their subtle, exciting, and dynamic content forms. We talked about the entrance, emphasis, and exit animations and how those can be used to call attention to specific content or to accentuate a point. And finally, we talked about additional media and how adding non-conventional forms of media in your slides can give your presentation a little bit of an edge. We're at the end here, so do we have any final questions?
So the only question that I have that I didn't get to is he asks, some users embed video but it plays poorly live. Is there a way to optimize playback during live presentations?
I don't know of any way you can optimize playback. I think that's something that you just kind of have to tweak. But I don't think there's any specific settings in PowerPoint that you can use to make that play better.
Right. So I have video in a couple of my presentations, and I think the only problems that I have is if it's just embedded over the internet. The flaw is having an internet connection, and then how well the audio in my laptop works in the room, unless I decide to bring a speaker in. So those are the issues that I have with video. Otherwise, I personally don't think I've had an issue where it plays poorly live if it's quality video to begin with.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anything specific that I can do to help there. I'm sorry. Do we have any other questions?
Nope, that was it. We are good to go.
Okay, then in that case, it is the end. Thank you so much for attending. It's just a big thank you to everybody who watched, and a big thank you to WIT for taking a chance on me and letting me present in August. If for some reason you want to get in contact with me, I have my Twitter and my blog on the screen. And since we talked about adding media that you could potentially get from the internet, I do have a slide containing links for copyright-free video, picture, and audio clips, as in addition to a link for PowerPoint themes you can find online. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
So my last question is, will you send me the slide deck so I can make the slide deck available, or at least is the slide deck available at your blog?
The slide deck is available at my blog, but if you want me to send it to you, then yes, I
It
can
would
do
be
that.
great. We can send it out to our to the attendees or our user list. And additionally, I wanted to remind everyone that within a day or two, we'll have this particular video uploaded to YouTube, to the PassWit YouTube page, and we'll provide a link to that as well on wit.sequelpass.org. Okay, so thank you very, very much, Evelyn. I appreciate it very much. I saw the session in Columbus, and it was just as good a webinar as it was live. And I want to tell you that our receptionist is watching in the other room, and your donut joke, I heard her laugh through the wall.
Yay! Somebody liked it.
So I thought you would appreciate that I heard her laugh through the wall. So thank you very much, everybody. And again, have an awesome day. Hold on. Oh, no, now my receptionist is sending me a question that's probably harassing me. But a couple of people have sent as messages, said excellent presentation, that they really appreciated it. Thank you. So thank you from all of us. You guys have a great day, and thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to a WIT session. So have a great day.